Well, hello everybody, and welcome to back to the Impact Talks podcast. Today we're going to talk about Emerson Marques from SOS Children's Villages in Portugal, and Lauren Buchanan from OneKind in Scotland.
Yes, absolutely. Two brilliant people, and I was really happy they joined us at the first event. When we were curating the event, which we try to do every time, so it has a theme every event. And this was very much celebrating telephone fundraising because it was the first event and we wanted to, make some noise. This is a very unacknowledged and underutilized channel in the fundraising mix. So, let's bring it in there. Let's do something about it. And I know that almost everybody in the fundraising sector is really aware about how do they do acquisition. And that's why we had these two speakers come in. Lauren is an example of a one-woman army doing the whole pipeline of lead acquisition into conversion and the afterward the communication to the donors, where Emerson is from a bigger charity, and he's actually a brand manager. Normally you don't work well with brand managers, but he got the point. He knows what this is all about. So they've worked on acquisition and the methodology of how do you motivate donors, he talked about, and then secondly, how do you make sure that the people doing the conversation in the telephone at the end know what people were responding to online to start with. So that was kind of two speakers we wanted to bring in to make sure that the whole acquisition understanding can improve, and you can do it if you're a big charity, but you could definitely do it if you're a small charity.
Especially Emerson talked about why do the charitable organizations even have to exist, and how do we simplify the understanding of charitable organizations? Previous
to starting Impact Talks, I worked a lot of years with a Scottish company called Revolutionize, together with Alan Clayton and Ken Burnett, some of the really strong speakers. And Alan is actually joining us on the next event about emotional fundraising and how to engage with donors. And that's what Emerson has been tapping into is it's not about the charity, it's about the purpose. So I think his example is, instead of saying, do you have a few minutes for my charity? He says, do you have a few minutes to hear about what happens to kids in Portugal every 30 seconds? And it's a totally different proposition to get engagement and tingling that initial curiosity from potential donors. And he kept going back to the whole purpose definition because it's actually a quite hard one. I was asked yesterday when somebody came and visited the office on why Impact Talks. And we were talking a little bit while, and then at the end it was like, because we want to raise more money. Telephone, important, lifetime value, all these things. But basically it's the more money we bring in, the more we can change the world. And it's about changing the world for our beneficiaries. And that can be nature, it can be human rights, it can be anything that the charity works with. But that's the communication we have to do. It's our core purpose and not our organization, our board, and all these things that are around making the organization happening. They're not relevant to the donor.
Yeah, they talked really much about how to run these lead generation campaigns.
Yeah. So in fundraising, you have this classical two-step conversion you're talking about, and that's creating the initial interest and spark people's first engagement. So in OneKind's example with Lauren, it's signing a petition, it's getting a badge, it's taking that one first step, saying, "Oh, I'm actually interested in this. This is wrong. We should do something about it." It's about animal rights and animal welfare in her organization. And when they do that, it's on social media because that's the best way to create that first contact. But what the telephone then does is it's the best way of converting people into regular giving. And there are many campaign types. Some are for one-off donations and one-off donations again. But the really effective and highly valuable for the charity ones are converting people into regular giving, at least in Europe. So Lauren has the whole pipeline managing one person, making sure it's all lined up. And you have the social media to start with. You get the leads in, you get them over and call them really quickly and continue the conversation there over the telephone. So that's kind of the core element there. Emerson was really interested in talking about the information trickling down from first engagement on social media. What type of ad did you click? What pictures were on that ad? What did you relate to as a potential donor? And then that feeds into the call center. So when I'm calling you, or somebody else, I already know what started the conversation that we are having today. And there's a lot of, again, a split in the sector with the best practice and the not so good practice is the people who are able to supply that information to the people calling afterwards have a lot better results and have a lot better conversations with the donors as well. Because one key element here, and that's for our next episode on MyLN, is she talks about that the donor should feel better about the charity when you leave the conversation than at the start. So it's how do you make that conversation the best possible? And that's what Emerson has done, making sure that the purpose for signing up, the purpose of the charity feeds all the way through to the conversation with the potential donor.
Simplicity was one of his key arguments.
Yeah, it's the elevator speech all over again. If you can't explain it in less than 30 seconds, what are you actually about? It's really hard to get that initial response and then develop the conversation afterwards. And SOS Children Villages is about the kids. And in Portugal, it's a lot about Portuguese kids and the neglect they're exposed to. One thing I think that's really important with the session we had with Lauren and Emerson is that it showed two really different perspectives on working with telephone fundraising. And that's what we're trying to introduce into Impact Talk. It's not only about the big charities, the bigger INGOs, which Emerson is from. They need to work on this and be better, and they do, and that's what we shared. But at the same time, you have somebody like Lauren, who's one person who actually is responsible for almost everything in the value chain of converting donors. So you'll have people joining in who are new to telephone fundraising. They can get high value of learning here, and also people who are just that one-person army to make that impact. So thank you joining us for this podcast around Impact Talks and the wonderful speakers we had speaking at our first event in January. We would love to get in touch with you and have you join our community as well. You can go and explore that on impact-talks.com, and you can see both how to buy a ticket, what the theme of the next few events are, and really important, if you have a story or some knowledge you want to share, please do get in contact. Either write to me personally, my email's in there, or sign up for our newsletter or call of speakers. We really want more people to join in, so you are very welcome. Thank you.
Hello,